Hyun-suk lived alone at the edge of the old colony city. His small workshop stood between broken metal towers and dry dust plains that stretched for miles. Every night he worked late, fixing old drones and machines that others had abandoned. The sound of his tools filled the silent night. He worked not for money but because work kept his mind quiet. His wife, Yoonji, had died 2 years ago during the orbital invasion. Since then, Hyun lived only to keep things running. Machines made sense. People did not. The city around him had once been bright and full of life. Now, it was only smoke, metal, and ghosts. Hyun repaired whatever he could find: hoverbikes, battery cores, air filters. He kept a small lamp beside his bench and a photo of Yoonji on the wall. Every time the wind howled through the cracks, he would look at her photo and whisper, "You'd tell me to fix it, wouldn't you?" That night, the storm outside was worse than usual. Lightning flashed above the burned towers, and the ground shook with thunder. Hyun was working on a damaged power cell, wiping sweat from his face when something strange happened. Through the roar of wind and thunder, he heard a faint sound, soft, distant, and almost impossible to believe. It was a baby's cry. At first, he thought he was hearing things. There were no families nearby, no children left in this part of the city. But the sound came again, clearer this time. A cry of fear, weak and small, carried by the storm. Hyun dropped his tool and stepped outside. The wind bit his face, and dust stung his eyes. He followed the sound, walking between the old metal wrecks and fallen structures. As he moved deeper into the dark street, the cry grew louder. It came from behind a broken transport vehicle lying on its side. Hyun climbed over the wreckage and stopped. His breath caught. There, lying in the mud and glowing faintly in the dim light, was a tall figure covered in silver scales. A woman. No, not a human woman. Her body shimmered like molten metal, and her eyes were half closed. In her arms, she held a small infant wrapped in torn fabric. Hyun froze. The woman was unlike anything he had seen. She had a human shape, but her skin carried thin ridges of scales. Her hair was pale and long, like strands of moonlight. Around her lay marks of a fight, burnt ground, blood, and broken weapon pieces. The baby in her arms cried weakly, its small voice trembling against the storm. The woman looked up when she heard Hyun. Her eyes glowed faintly blue. She tried to speak but coughed blood. "Help, please," she whispered in a soft, broken voice. "They're coming. Protect him." Then her strength gave out, and she collapsed beside the child. Hyun's first thought was to run. The military patrols often hunted anything non-human. If they found him with her, they would call him a traitor. But when he looked at the baby, something stopped him. It was so small, so fragile, crying helplessly under the cold rain. He remembered the day he had buried his wife, the emptiness he had felt since. He couldn't walk away again. He picked up the baby carefully, then turned to the fallen woman. She was heavy but warm, her breath shallow. He carried her over his shoulder and hurried back through the storm toward his workshop. The wind screamed behind him, and far away he thought he saw red lights moving through the fog, patrol drones scanning the streets. Hyun pushed through the metal door of his shop and set them both on the floor. He locked the door, sealed the windows, and switched on the small heater. The woman's body was cold, but when the warm air touched her skin, faint steam rose from it. Hyun laid her on his work table and covered her with a blanket. The baby cried again, and he gently rocked it, unsure what else to do. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." When he finally looked at the baby closely, he noticed something strange. The infant had small, faint lines of scales along its neck and arms, mixed with soft human skin. Its eyes were the same blue as the woman's but glowed lightly even in the dim light. "What are you?" Hyun whispered. But the baby only blinked up at him, peaceful now. Hours passed. The storm quieted outside. The woman stirred, her eyes opening slightly. She tried to sit up but gasped in pain. Hyun quickly supported her. "Don't move. You're injured," he said. She looked at him with confusion, then nodded weakly. "You helped me," she said slowly, her voice low and musical. "Why?" Hyun didn't know how to answer. "Because you needed help," he said simply. "And because there's a child." She smiled faintly, though her eyes were full of pain. "You are human," she said. "A mechanic?" "Yes." "Name's Hyun," he said. "Who are you?" "Mira," she whispered. "I am Drayan." The name meant nothing to Hyun, but her tone told him it was important. "They hunted us. My people refused to fight in their war." Hyun frowned. "The militia?" She nodded slowly. "They want the child. He is different." Her voice trembled. "His father was human." Hyun looked at the baby again, realizing what she meant. A half-human, half-Drayan child. He had never heard of such a thing. "Why would they hunt a baby?" he asked quietly. "Because he can live in both worlds," she said, closing her eyes. "Because he can change everything." Her strength faded again, and she fell asleep. Hyun stood there in silence for a long time, the heater humming softly in the background. He looked at the child and then at the strange woman. Everything about them was dangerous. If the militia found them here, they would kill them, and him too. But something deep inside him wouldn't let him abandon them. He spent the rest of the night cleaning her wounds carefully and repairing a small oxygen mask to help her breathe. He noticed that her blood shimmered like silver under the light. The baby slept beside her, quiet and calm now. Every time Hyun looked at them, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, something he hadn't felt since Yoonji's death. Before dawn, he heard engines in the distance, search drones sweeping the area. He quickly dimmed his lights and pulled metal sheets over the windows. He held his breath until the sound faded. Only then did he sit down beside the woman again. He whispered to himself, "Yoonji, you always said never ignore something broken. Well, I guess that counts for people too." He looked at the baby and smiled faintly. "Or dragons." Outside, the storm began to clear. The first light of morning touched the broken skyline. Hyun didn't know what was coming next, but he knew one thing for sure. His quiet life as a lonely mechanic was over. Something new had begun, something bigger than him. And it had started with a baby's cry in the middle of the night. When Mira woke again, the sun was already high outside. The sound of machines filled the small workshop. Hyun was busy fixing an old generator near the door, his sleeves rolled up and grease covering his hands. The air smelled of oil and dust. For a moment she lay still, her golden eyes watching him. He moved with quiet focus, not noticing her awake yet. It was strange for her to see a human working without fear or hate. Hyun turned and saw her looking. He stopped the tool and walked closer. "You're awake," he said softly. "How do you feel?" Mira tried to speak, but her voice was weak. "Better," she said slowly. "Thanks to you." She looked around the room. The walls were full of hanging tools, metal scraps, and small lights. On a nearby table, the baby slept peacefully inside a warm box with soft cloth. Hyun had used an old heater to keep the air warm for him. "I didn't know what kind of food you eat," Hyun said. "So I gave you water only." She smiled faintly. "Water is fine." She tried to sit up but winced. Her shoulder was still bandaged where the wound glowed faintly under her skin. "You lost a lot of blood," Hyun said. "If you were human, you'd be dead by now." "I am not," she said, and there was a hint of pride in her voice. "We are called Drayan. Long ago, humans built us. They made us to help fight in the Great Wars, but when peace ended, they feared us. We left the colonies and built our own cities far from here." Hyun listened quietly, his brow furrowed. "So you were made by humans?" "Yes," she said. "But we became something more. We learned, grew, and became free. But freedom has a price. The warlords on this planet fear us. They believe our blood carries power they can use." Hyun looked toward the baby. "And the child?" Myra's face softened. "His name is Aaron. He is half of both worlds. His father was human, an engineer named Daehan. He helped us escape the war machines. He believed humans and Drayan could build a new life together. The warlords found us. He died trying to save us." Her voice broke a little at the end. Hyun was silent for a long moment. He knew the pain in her eyes. It was the same pain he had carried since Yoonji's death. You said last night they were coming, he said quietly. Who? The militia, Mira whispered. They hunt us. They think Aaron is a weapon. But he is just a child. They don't understand. Hyun looked at the sleeping baby again. There was something peaceful about him, yet strange too. His small hands had a faint glow around the fingertips, as if energy moved just under his skin. If they find you here, they'll destroy my shop and kill us all, he said. I can leave once I can walk, Mira said. You have done enough. Hyun shook his head. You can't go yet. They're still searching the area. I saw drones this morning. Then they will come, Mira said. They always do. Hyun looked at her, then at his tools. Something inside him refused to give up. Maybe not, he said after a moment. If I can make a signal mask, I can hide this place. They won't see us on their scanners. You would do that for strangers? She asked. He shrugged. I fix things. It's what I do. For the rest of the day, Hyun worked hard. He took apart old communication parts and built a small signal disruptor. Mira watched him in silence, curious about his methods. He was careful, patient, and clever. Even with limited parts, he made something that looked like a miracle. She had seen great machines built by Drayan engineers, but there was something special about this human. His will to make things work no matter what. As the sun began to set, Hyun powered the device. The lights flickered once, then the signal mask began to hum softly. The workshop scanners went blank. It's working, Hyun said with a smile. We're invisible now. Mira felt a strange warmth in her chest. You are different from other humans I've met, she said. Hyun looked at her for a moment. I'm just a mechanic. No, she said quietly. You are something more. You fix what others abandon. That night, when the baby woke crying, Mira tried to stand but couldn't. Hyun came quickly, picking up the child and rocking him gently. It's all right, little one, he said softly. No need to cry. The baby looked up at him with glowing blue eyes. For a moment Hyun thought he saw a flash of light pass through the room. The nearby lamp flickered. Mira saw it too. His energy is waking, she said. When he cries, it connects with machines. It is why the militia wants him. Hyun held the baby carefully. Then we need to keep him quiet, he said with a small smile. He might light up the whole city. Mira laughed weakly. It was the first time he had heard her laugh. It sounded strange but warm, almost human. Later, after the baby slept again, Hyun sat beside Mira and asked, What will you do when you're better? I must reach the mountains, she said. There is a hidden Drayan outpost there. They can help Aaron. Hyun nodded slowly. That's far. The roads are broken, and the patrols guard every route. You won't make it alone. I have no choice, she said softly. Hyun thought for a long time before answering. Maybe I can help. I still have an old cargo skimmer in the yard. It's damaged, but I can fix it. Mira looked at him in surprise. Why would you risk your life for me? Hyun leaned back and looked at the ceiling. When my wife died, I thought the world ended. But maybe it didn't. Maybe it just needed fixing. He looked at her again. You and your child need help. I can't ignore that. Myra's eyes softened. Then you have my promise, she said quietly. If we survive, I will repay you. Just stay alive, Hyun said. That'll be enough. Over the next 2 days, Hyun worked on repairing the skimmer. He replaced the fuel cells, patched the hull, and built new energy shields from scrap parts. Mira helped as much as she could, using her strange touch to fuse metals together. Her energy glowed through her hands like molten light. Hyun watched, amazed at how human and alien technology blended together so naturally. On the third night, as they prepared to test the skimmer, Hyun noticed Mira staring at the stars through a broken window. You miss your home, he said quietly. Yes, she said. But I do not know if it still exists. Maybe home is not a place anymore. She turned to him. What about you? Do you have anyone left? He shook his head. No one. Just the workshop. And now, you three. Mira smiled softly. Then perhaps this is home for now. Before Hyun could answer, the alarm on his table beeped. His heart jumped. The signal mask was being disturbed. He rushed to the monitor. They're scanning again, he said. 2 drones, moving fast. Mira stood despite her pain. They found us. Hyun grabbed a plasma cutter and turned off the lights. Hide behind the machine stack. Take Aaron. She moved quickly, holding the child close. The sound of engines grew louder outside. Through a crack in the wall, Hyun saw red lights sweeping across the ground. A metallic voice echoed from outside. Unauthorized energy detected. Scanning for biosigns. Hyun's pulse raced. He waited, holding his breath. The drones hovered near the roof, scanning with blue beams. The signal mask flickered, trying to resist. Suddenly, one drone turned toward the door. Hyun acted fast. He powered up a nearby welding torch and tossed it through the open side hatch. The heat and light confused the scanners, making them read false signals. The drones whirled toward the distraction and fired, blowing up an empty scrap pile. Sparks lit the sky. The morning light came weak and cold through the cracked roof of the tunnel. Hyun woke first, rubbing the dust from his eyes. He looked around the small camp they had made inside the tunnel and saw Mira sleeping beside Aaron, who was curled up in a bundle of fabric. The skimmer was quiet now, covered with dust from the explosion last night, but still working. Hyun touched the metal surface and smiled slightly. "Good girl," he said to the machine, as if it could hear him. "You held together again." He went outside for a moment, climbing to the edge of the tunnel entrance. From there, he could see the endless red plains stretching all the way to the distant blue mountains. Those mountains were their destination. Somewhere inside them, Mira said, was the Drayan outpost that could help the baby. But the trip would not be easy. When he returned, Mira was awake. She looked pale and weak, her scales dull from exhaustion. "We should move soon," she said softly. "They will search again." Hyun handed her a small bottle of water. "You need to rest," he said. "You can't keep pushing yourself." "I will rest when the child is safe," she said quietly. Hyun sighed. "You sound like my wife," he said. "She never stopped until a job was done." Mira smiled faintly. "Then she must have been strong." "She was," Hyun said. "Stronger than me." They ate what little food they had left, some dried protein strips and water. Then Hyun checked the skimmer again and adjusted the controls. "The mountains are still far," he said. "But if we follow the old service tunnels, we can stay off the main radar." Mira nodded, holding Aaron close. "We will follow your lead, mechanic." They began their journey again. The skimmer floated smoothly over broken terrain and twisted metal remains. As the day passed, the landscape changed. The flat plains turned into deep valleys filled with fog. Old towers jutted out like bones of dead giants. The air grew colder and sharper. Hyun kept his eyes on the scanner. "No drones so far," he said. "Maybe they gave up." "They won't," Mira said quietly. "They never stop until their orders are complete." Hyun didn't answer. He focused on steering. In his mind, he kept thinking about what would happen after they reached the outpost. He didn't know if he could go back to his empty workshop again. Somehow, he already knew he wouldn't. When night came, they stopped near the entrance of a large ruined structure buried in the ground. It looked like an old orbital lift station, long abandoned. The metal walls were covered in rust and vines. "We can rest here for the night," Hyun said. They went inside and found the main hall. The air was cold but still breathable. Hyun lit a small lamp, and the dim yellow light revealed old control panels and broken glass. Mira placed Aaron on a blanket and checked his temperature. The child was fine, smiling faintly as he reached for her finger. Hyun explored the hall and found a control terminal that still had power. "This place used to send cargo to the orbit," he said. "If we can fix the core, maybe we can send a signal or use the power lines to recharge the skimmer." Mira looked at the screens. Strange symbols glowed on them. "These systems were made from both human and Drayan technology," she said. It was one of the last projects we worked on together before the wars began. That means you can understand it better than me, Hyun said, handing her his tool set. Mira smiled slightly. Then we fix it together. They worked side by side through the night. Hyun repaired the damaged cables while Mira used her energy to activate the old fusion cells. Her hands glowed softly as she touched the control panel, fusing broken wires with silver light. Hyun watched, amazed again at how easily she worked with machines. It was like the metal itself listened to her. You know, Hyun said after a while, I used to think machines only needed logic and tools. But you make it look like they need care too. Mira looked at him with a tired smile. Machines respond to what is inside us. Humans give life to what they build. That is what makes your kind different. Maybe, Hyun said, tightening another bolt. Or maybe we're just too stubborn to let things die. A faint hum filled the room. The main power core came online, and lights flickered across the ceiling. It works, Hyun said with excitement. Mira looked at the energy readings. This power is strong enough to activate the defense network. If we reroute it, we could use it to protect the mountains from militia scans. You mean we can hide the outpost? Hyun asked. Yes, she said. But we need to finish the connection manually in the reactor room below. Hyun wiped the sweat from his face. Then let's do it. They left Eren asleep near the console and went down into the lower level. The air grew heavier, and the walls vibrated with low energy. In the center of the room stood a huge reactor surrounded by broken pipes. Hyun looked at it carefully. If we restart this thing, it'll overload fast, he said. I can control it, Mira said. But I'll need your help to link human tech with Drayan core. Hyun began to connect wires and activate switches while Mira stood in front of the glowing crystal heart of the reactor. Blue light surrounded her as she lifted her hands. Start the link, she said. Hyun pulled a lever. Sparks flew. The reactor came to life with a deep roar. The lights around them flashed red, then steady blue. Myra's body glowed brighter as she poured her energy into the core. It's working, Hyun shouted. But suddenly, alarms began to sound. Hyun looked at the monitor. They detected the energy surge. The militia is heading here. Mira gritted her teeth. We need just a few more minutes. Hyun ran to the console and began typing fast, trying to divert excess power. I'll hold the system stable, he said. The floor trembled as distant explosions echoed from above. Drones were entering the station. Myra's voice was soft but firm. You should go, Hyun. Take the child and run. No, he said sharply. I'm not leaving you. She looked at him, her eyes glowing with strange light. If the system overloads, it will destroy everything here. I must stay to control the balance. Hyun clenched his fists. You're not dying here. Not after all this. The sound of gunfire grew louder. Hyun grabbed his plasma cutter. I'll buy you time. Myra's voice shook. You cannot fight them all. Maybe not, he said, looking back at her with a sad smile, but I can try. He ran up the stairs toward the entrance hall. Drones and soldiers were already breaking through the doors. Hyun ducked behind a console and fired the plasma cutter. It wasn't a weapon, but the burning light tore through the metal and forced the soldiers to take cover. Come on, he shouted, throwing a wrench that hit a drone's lens. It exploded in sparks. Down below, Mira could feel the power growing unstable. She poured more of her life energy into the reactor, keeping it steady. The glow around her became almost blinding. She whispered to herself, For Eren. For Hyun. Hyun kept fighting, using every trick he knew. He overloaded a generator, causing an explosion that threw the soldiers back. But one drone managed to fire, and a beam hit his shoulder. He fell, pain shooting through him. He could hear Mira calling his name faintly. He pushed himself up, bleeding, and limped back to the control room. It's done, he gasped. The path to the mountains is clear. The night sky rushed past them as the old cargo skimmer flew through thick clouds. The sound of the engines filled the cabin, and every few seconds the machine shook like it was going to fall apart. Hyun held the controls tightly, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The rain hit the glass in hard streaks, and flashes of light from distant storms lit the dark sky. Behind him, Mira sat holding Eren close to her chest, keeping the baby warm under a blanket. "Hold on," Hyun said. "This thing wasn't built for speed." Mira nodded, her eyes scanning the skies behind them. "They won't stop chasing us," she said. "The militia will send more drones." "I know," Hyun said. "But if we stay low, they won't track us so easily." The skimmer dipped lower, gliding above the ruined city's edge and over endless plains of red dust. The ground below was full of old war wrecks, metal skeletons of forgotten machines. Mira looked out the window quietly. "This planet feels empty," she said softly. "It wasn't always," Hyun replied. "People used to live everywhere. Then the wars came, and everything fell apart. For a while, they said nothing. The only sound was the wind and the engine." Hyun's mind kept flashing back to Yoonji. He had not felt alive in years, but now he was risking his life again for someone he had just met. Maybe it was crazy. Maybe it was the only thing that made sense. After hours of flying, the skimmer started to slow. "We need to stop," Hyun said. "The power cells are overheating." He spotted a broken tunnel ahead and guided the skimmer into it. The metal roof above was cracked, letting thin light through. When they landed, Hyun cut the engine and listened. Silence. Only the soft hum of cooling metal. Mira sighed with relief and looked down at the baby. Eren was awake, his blue eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He reached up and touched her face, cooing softly. "He's strong," Hyun said. "Yes," Mira said. "But his strength must stay hidden. If the militia learns what he can do, they'll never stop." Hyun walked around the skimmer, checking for damage. One of the power cells was leaking energy, and smoke rose from the back panel. He frowned. "We can't go far like this," he said. "I need to repair the main converter." "Can you?" Mira asked. He smiled a little. "I can fix anything if you give me time." They made camp inside the tunnel. Mira built a small fire using metal scraps that burned blue under her energy. Hyun laid out his tools and began to work on the skimmer. For hours, the soft clicking and tapping of his tools echoed through the tunnel. As he worked, he spoke quietly. "Back before the war, I used to repair big ships. Yoonji, my wife, worked with me. She was the smart one. I just followed her lead." Mira listened. "You must have loved her very much." "I still do," he said softly. "She believed machines had souls. I thought she was crazy, but now, maybe she was right. Maybe everything that's built and cared for becomes a little alive." Mira smiled faintly. "Then your heart is a builder's heart. That is rare among humans." Hyun laughed a little. "Most people just call me stubborn." As the night grew colder, Mira sang softly to Eren in a language Hyun didn't understand. The melody was slow and haunting, like the sound of wind over water. Hyun paused his work for a moment to listen. "That's beautiful," he said. "It's an old Drayan song," Mira said. "We sing it to children to remind them that even in the dark, there is always light waiting to be found." Hyun looked up at the dim stars visible through a crack in the roof. "I like that," he said. "We humans could use songs like that." Hours later, he finally tightened the last bolt on the skimmer. "It should work now," he said. "But I don't know for how long." Before they could rest, the baby began to cry again. Loud, piercing, and full of strange energy. The air around them vibrated. The skimmer's lights flickered, and the fire burned brighter. Hyun stood up quickly. "What's happening?" Mira looked worried. "His energy is reacting to something. It only does this when danger is near." As she spoke, a deep rumbling echoed through the tunnel. The ground shook slightly. Hyun grabbed his scanner from the floor. The screen showed movement outside, several mechanical signals approaching fast. "Drones," he said. "They found us." Mira clutched the baby tightly. "How?" "Their scanners might have picked up the power leak," Hyun said. He ran to the skimmer. "We have to move now." They jumped into the skimmer. Hyun started the engine, but the machine sputtered. He cursed under his breath and hit the console. "Come on, old girl." The engine finally roared to life, just as the tunnel entrance filled with red lights. Small hovering drones flew inside, firing blue beams that cut into the walls. Mira shouted, "Go!" Hyun slammed the throttle, and the skimmer sped forward through the tunnel. Laser bolts hit the metal floor behind them. Sparks flew. Mira turned, holding one hand out. Energy glowed from her palm, forming a bright shield that blocked several shots. The light made her scales shimmer like silver fire. Hyun kept flying through the twisting tunnel until it opened into a massive cavern filled with old machinery and broken pipes. "This way!" Hyun shouted, steering toward the far end. One drone flew above them, targeting the skimmer's engine. Hyun grabbed a small wrench and threw it hard. The tool hit the drone sensor, making it spin out of control and crash into a wall. "You fight like a mechanic," Mira said, half smiling even in the chaos. "It's the only way I know," he said. The drones kept coming. Mira closed her eyes and focused. A bright wave of energy burst from her body, creating a pulse that knocked the drones backward. "That won't stop them for long," she said weakly. The effort drained her strength. "I have an idea," Hyun said, his mind racing. "Hold tight." He turned sharply toward a narrow passage on the right side of the cavern. "There's an old reactor tunnel here. If we blow it behind us, they can't follow." He pulled a small power cell from the console and armed it as a makeshift explosive. As they entered the narrow passage, he threw the cell back into the tunnel and accelerated. The explosion behind them was deafening. The shockwave pushed the skimmer forward, and debris fell everywhere. When the dust cleared, they had made it through. The drones were gone. Hyun slowed the skimmer and finally stopped. The silence that followed was heavy. Mira breathed hard, still holding Aaron. "You are reckless," she said quietly. "Yeah," Hyun said with a tired smile. "But we're alive." She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw something like trust in her eyes. "You risked everything," she said. "I told you," he replied. "I fix things. Right now, that means keeping you alive." They stayed in the tunnel for the rest of the night. Mira rested with Aaron while Hyun kept watch. He looked at the small family, an alien woman and her hybrid child, and wondered how he had ended up here. But when he thought about leaving them, his heart refused. He checked his map. The mountains were still far away, but the old transport routes might lead there. He decided that tomorrow they would continue. No matter what happened, he would get them to safety. The mountains stood quiet under the pale morning sun. Mist rolled across the peaks, soft and silver. Mira walked slowly through the narrow mountain path, holding Aaron close to her chest. The child was sleeping peacefully, unaware of the chaos they had left behind. Her body ached, and her wings were weak, but she kept moving. Every step she took carried the memory of Hyun's voice, his smile, and the way he refused to leave her behind. She stopped at a ridge and looked back toward the plains. In the far distance, she could still see a faint blue glow, rising like a quiet sunrise. That was where the station had been. It was gone now, buried in silence and light. Mira closed her eyes and whispered softly, "Thank you, Hyun." The path grew steeper as she climbed higher. By midday, the wind became stronger and colder. She reached a stone archway carved into the cliff, almost hidden by vines. Strange runes glowed faintly along its surface. She pressed her hand against one of the symbols, and the stone door slowly opened. Warm air drifted out from inside, and she stepped into the hidden outpost of the Draen. The outpost was deep within the mountain, a network of glowing tunnels and chambers filled with soft humming energy. Several Draen appeared from the inner halls, tall, scaled beings with sharp eyes and long cloaks. They stopped when they saw Mira, their eyes widening in shock. One of them, an elder with dark silver scales, stepped forward. "Mira," he said slowly, "we thought you were dead." "I almost was," she replied quietly. "But a human saved me, and he saved the child." The elder's eyes moved to the baby in her arms. "So it is true," he whispered. "The child survived." Mira nodded. "His name is Aaron." They led her deeper inside. The halls glowed with gentle blue light. She could hear the sound of machines working, quiet, careful hums of life still moving in secret. They entered a healing chamber where soft energy fields surrounded the walls. Mira laid Aaron on a smooth crystal table, and the healers gathered around. The elder turned to her. "You are injured." "I can manage," she said. "Help the child first." One healer examined Aaron carefully, scanning his small chest and wings. "His life force is strong," she said. "But his bond energy is unstable. He will need balance soon, or his body will weaken." "What kind of balance?" Mira asked. "He needs the one who shared energy with him," the healer said. "The human." Myra's throat tightened. "He's gone," she whispered. "He gave everything to protect us." The healer bowed her head. "Then the child carries part of his light within him. That is rare and dangerous. Human essence fades quickly in our kind." Mira looked down at Aaron. His tiny hands glowed faintly, just like Hyun's plasma torch when he worked. Her eyes filled with tears. "Then I will not let it fade," she said firmly. For the next few days, Mira stayed in the outpost. She healed slowly, though her body still carried the marks of battle. The Drayan elders spoke of Hyun often when she told them what had happened. Some doubted her story, but others listened in silence, understanding the truth behind her words. One night, Mira sat near the outpost balcony that opened to the sky. The stars shone bright and cold above the mountains. Aaron slept in a cradle beside her. She looked at the stars and whispered softly, "You would have liked it here, Hyun. There are machines everywhere that still need fixing." A faint sound came from behind her. She turned and saw a small holographic unit on the table. It was one of Hyun's repair drones, the one that used to follow him around. It had been damaged in the escape but still working enough to blink a weak blue light. Mira picked it up, and to her surprise, a voice came through, distorted but clear enough to recognize. "Mira, if you're hearing this, it means you made it," Hyun's voice said. "I didn't have time to finish repairs, so this is probably breaking apart by now. But that's okay. Machines don't need to last forever, right?" His voice paused for a moment. "Take care of the little one. He's special. Not because he's half dragon or half something else, but because he's hope. You both are." Mira pressed her hand against her mouth, tears running down her cheeks. Hyun's voice continued softly. "If machines can be saved, maybe hearts can too. Thank you, Mira, for reminding me of that." The drone's light flickered once more and then went dark. Mira held it close to her chest, as if she could still feel his warmth through it. "You fixed more than machines, Hyun," she whispered. "You fixed me." Years passed quietly in the mountain outpost. Aaron grew fast. His wings were bright and strong, but his eyes held the same calm determination as the human who had saved him. He was curious about everything: machines, engines, and stories about the world outside. Mira often told him about Hyun and the human lands far away. One evening, when Aaron was old enough to walk the mountain paths alone, he found Mira working on an old generator near the base of the outpost. "Mother," he said, his small voice curious, "is it true that humans can't fly?" Mira smiled gently. "Yes, it's true." "Then how did Hyun reach the sky?" Aaron asked. Mira looked up at the glowing horizon. "He didn't need wings," she said softly. "He had courage instead." Aaron nodded slowly, thinking about that. Then he said, "When I grow up, I want to see where he came from." Myra's eyes softened. "One day you will," she said. "And when you do, remember to help them the way he helped us." Aaron smiled and hugged her. "I will." The night grew colder, and the stars brightened over the mountains. The outpost's energy field shimmered softly, still powered by the system Hyun and Mira had built together. It protected not only the Drayan but also a piece of human hope buried deep within the heart of the mountain. Decades later, the story of the human mechanic who saved a dragon child spread quietly among both species. Some said it was a myth, a bedtime tale told to young engineers. Others believed it was a real event that changed the path of peace between humans and dragons. In a small memorial chamber at the edge of the outpost, a single machine stood, A restored skimmer, polished and bright. Next to it, a plaque written in both human and Drayan language read, "For Hyun, the mechanic who fixed more than metal. He fixed what connects us all." Mira often came to that place in silence. Her hair had turned pale silver with time, and her scales had grown faint. She would sit beside the skimmer and run her hand along its side. "You would have been proud of him," she would whisper, thinking of Aaron. "He's learning to build things that heal instead of destroy." One evening, as the stars shimmered above and the wind blew softly through the tunnels, Mira closed her eyes. She thought she heard a familiar voice in the wind, a quiet, warm tone saying, "You did good, Mira." She smiled faintly. "So did you, Hyun." The hum of the skimmer grew faintly louder for a brief moment, like a heartbeat answering hers. And somewhere deep in the network of ancient circuits, a spark glowed again, blue and steady. Aaron stood at the entrance, watching her with calm, bright eyes. "Mother," he said softly, "it's time to go. The council is waiting." Mira stood slowly and took one last look at the plaque. "Let's go," she said. "The future won't build itself." Together they walked out into the morning light, their figures small against the vast sky.